The discovery. The harsh winds of Proxima b howled across the barren landscape, whipping up clouds of red dust that obscured the dim light of the system's distant star. Amidst this desolate scene, a lone figure trudged through the storm, shoulders hunched against the biting cold. This was Zara Chen, the last human left on this godforsaken rock at the edge of explored space. Zara adjusted her respirator, squinting through the protective visor of her environment suit as she made her way back to the ramshackle outpost she called home. The scavenging run had been a bust, nothing but stripped husks of ancient mining equipment and corroded pipes. Resources were running low, and with them, her options. As she approached the outpost, a squat prefab structure half buried in the red soil, Zara's wrist computer beeped insistently. She frowned, tapping the screen to bring up the alert. The outpost's long-range sensors had picked up something, a faint energy signature emanating from the scarlet wastes, a treacherous expanse of jagged rock formations and hidden sinkholes that no one in their right mind would venture into. Zara hesitated at the outpost's airlock, her hand hovering over the access panel. The smart move would be to ignore it, to hunker down and wait for the supply ship that was already 3 weeks overdue. But curiosity gnawed at her, that same reckless drive that had brought her to this desolate planet in the first place. With a resigned sigh, Zara punched in the door code and stepped inside. She had just enough time to grab some gear and make it to the anomaly before nightfall, and on Proxima b, you didn't want to be caught outside after dark. An hour later, Zara's rover crested a ridge overlooking the scarlet wastes. The energy signature was stronger now, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She brought the vehicle to a stop and climbed out, activating her suit's built-in scanner. The signal led her to a narrow crevice between two towering rock formations. Zara hesitated, eyeing the gap warily. It would be a tight squeeze, and if the rocks shifted, she shook her head, banishing the thought. She'd come too far to turn back now. Inching her way through the crevice, Zara emerged into a hidden grotto, sheltered from the howling winds outside. And there, half buried in the red soil, she saw it, a metallic form unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Zara approached cautiously, her scanner whirring as it analyzed the object. It was roughly humanoid in shape, but larger, standing at least 8 feet tall if it were upright. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns and glyphs that seemed to shimmer and shift in the dim light. "What are you?" Zara murmured, reaching out to brush away some of the accumulated dust. As her gloved hand made contact with the metal, a jolt of energy surged through her, and the robot's eyes flickered to life, 2 points of piercing blue light that locked onto her with unnerving intensity. Zara stumbled back, her heart racing. The robot didn't move, but she could sense an awakening awareness, as if it was studying her just as intently as she had been examining it. A garbled string of sounds emerged from the robot, a language unlike any Zara had ever heard. Her suit's translator struggled to make sense of it, finally spitting out a fragmented message. Assistance, required, mission, critical. Zara's mind raced. This was no leftover mining equipment or derelict spacecraft. This was something far older, far more advanced, and potentially far more valuable. With trembling hands, she activated her comm unit. "Outpost control, this is Chen. You're not going to believe what I've found out here." The response was immediate, but not what she expected. Instead of the usual static-filled acknowledgement from the automated systems, a clear, urgent voice came through. "Zara Chen, this is Captain Elara Drake of the ISS Horizon. We've been trying to reach you. You need to get off that planet immediately. Hostiles incoming, ETA 30 minutes. Grab what you can and get to the extraction point. Now." Zara's blood ran cold. She looked back at the robot, its eyes still fixed on her, then at the rapidly darkening sky outside the grotto. Whatever was going on, whatever this machine was, she couldn't leave it behind. "Understood, Horizon," she replied, already formulating a plan. "But I'm bringing a guest. You'd better have a big cargo bay." Without waiting for a response, Zara set to work. She'd repaired countless machines during her time on Proxima b, but nothing like this. Still, the principles were the same: find the power source, establish a connection, and jumpstart the systems. As she worked, interfacing her tools with the robot's unfamiliar technology, Zara's mind whirled with questions. Who had built this machine? Why was it here? And who were these hostiles the Horizon had warned her about? The robot's systems hummed to life, more and more of its glows lighting up with an inner fire. Zara stepped back, watching in awe as it slowly, jerkily, rose to its full height. Those piercing blue eyes focused on her once more, and this time, when it spoke, the words came through clear and crisp. "Greetings, human. I am Nexus, last of the Forerunners. My gratitude for your assistance is immeasurable, but we have no time for pleasantries. The harvesters approach, and with them, the potential extinction of all sentient life in this galaxy." Zara's mouth went dry. The harvesters. Nexus nodded gravely. An implacable force that consumes all in its path. They have pursued me across the stars for eons, seeking the knowledge I safeguard. We must depart immediately. As if on cue, Zara's comm crackled to life again. "Chen, we're picking up multiple bodies entering the atmosphere. Whatever you're doing down there, do it faster." Zara looked from the comm to Nexus, her mind made up. "All right, big guy, let's get out of here. Can you move?" Nexus took a halting step forward, joints creaking. "My mobility is impaired, but functional. Lead the way, human." Together, they emerged from the grotto into the howling storm. The sky above was alight with fiery streaks, ships entering the atmosphere at combat speed. In the distance, Zara could see her rover, and beyond that, the faint outline of the ship touching down, the horizon, she hoped. "Come on," she shouted over the wind, grabbing one of Nexus's massive hands. "We've got a ride to catch." As they stumbled towards the rover, the first energy blasts struck the ground around them, kicking up plumes of superheated rock and soil. Zara risked a glance over her shoulder and immediately wished she hadn't. Dark, insectoid shapes were descending from the ships above, the harvesters, she presumed. They reached the rover just as another volley of energy blasts carved up the ground where they had been moments before. Zara leaped into the driver's seat, frantically powering up the vehicle. "Nexus, I hate to ask, but can you provide some cover?" The robot's eyes flashed, with pleasure. One of its arms reconfigured, transforming into a weapon of terrifying complexity. Energy pulses lanced out, scattering the approaching harvesters. The rover's engine roared to life, and Zara gunned it, tearing across the rugged terrain towards the horizon. Energy blasts rocked the vehicle, but Nexus's return fire kept the worst of it at bay. As they neared the ship, Zara saw figures emerging from the cargo bay, laying down covering fire. She recognized the insignia of the Solar Confederacy Marines. The cavalry had arrived. With a final burst of speed, Zara drove the rover up the horizon's loading ramp. The instant they were inside, the ramp began to close, and she felt the deck lurch beneath them as the ship took off. Breathing hard, Zara climbed out of the rover and turned to Nexus. The robot was sparking in several places, damage from their harrowing escape evident on its frame. But those blue eyes were as intense as ever as they regarded her. "Well done, human," Nexus said. "You have bought us some time, but the true battle is yet to come." Before Zara could respond, she heard footsteps approaching. A tall, dark-skinned woman in a captain's uniform strode towards them, flanked by two heavily armed Marines. "Zara Chen," the woman said, her expression a mix of relief and wariness. "I'm Captain Drake. Welcome aboard the Horizon." Her gaze shifted to Nexus. "And you've got some explaining to do." Zara looked from the captain to Nexus, then back again. She'd come to Proxima b seeking adventure and purpose. As the Horizon accelerated away from the planet, leaving the harvesters in their wake for now, she realized she'd found far more than she'd bargained for. The fate of humanity, perhaps of all sentient life, now rested in her hands and those of this ancient, mysterious robot. Whatever came next, Zara knew one thing for certain: life was about to get a whole lot more interesting. Awakening. The IS horizon hummed with tension as it sped through hyperspace, putting distance between itself and the harvesters that had nearly captured Zara and Nexus on Proxima B. In the ship's med bay, Zara sat on an examination table, wincing as a medic treated the burns and cuts she'd sustained during their narrow escape. Captain Elara Drake stood nearby, her arms crossed, watching the proceedings with a mixture of concern and impatience. "All right, Chen," she said as the medic finished up. "I think it's time you filled us in on exactly what happened down there." Zara took a deep breath, trying to order her thoughts. "I was on a routine scavenging run when I picked up an energy signature in the Scarlet Wastes. I found," she gestured towards the cargo bay where Nexus was being kept under guard, "him. Nexus. He says he's the last of something called the Forerunners." Drake's eyebrows shot up. "Forerunners? I've never heard of them." "Neither had I," Zara admitted. "But whatever they were, the Harvesters want them badly. Nexus says he's carrying knowledge that could mean the extinction of all sentient life if the Harvesters get their hands on it." The captain pinched the bridge of her nose, looking suddenly weary. "Great. As if we didn't have enough problems with the consortium breathing down our necks." She sighed, then straightened up. "Come on, let's go have a chat with our new friend." They made their way to the cargo bay, passing nervous-looking crew members who had clearly heard rumors about their unusual passenger. When the doors slid open, Zara gasped. Nexus stood in the center of the bay, surrounded by a team of engineers and scientists who were carefully repairing the damage he'd sustained. The robot's metallic skin seemed to ripple and shift, the strange glyphs pulsing with an inner light. As they watched, a damaged section of his arm simply regrew, the metal flowing like liquid before solidifying again. "Incredible," Drake murmured. "I've never seen technology like this." Nexus turned at the sound of their voices, his blue eyes focusing on Zara. "Ah, my rescuer returns. I trust you are unharmed." Zara nodded, still awed by the sight before her. "I'm fine. Nexus, this is Captain Drake. She has some questions for you." The robot inclined his head towards Drake. "Of course. I owe you and your crew a debt of gratitude, Captain. Ask and I shall answer to the best of my ability." Drake didn't waste any time. "What exactly are you? And what do these harvesters want with you?" Nexus was silent for a moment, as if considering how best to explain. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons. "I am, as I told Zara, the last of the Forerunners. We were caretakers, you might say, guardians of life throughout the galaxy." He held out a hand, and a holographic display sprang to life above it, showing a map of the Milky Way. "Millions of years ago, my people seeded countless worlds with the building blocks of life. We nurtured civilizations, guided their evolution, protected them from cosmic threats." The display changed, showing strange, insectoid creatures that made Zara's skin crawl. The Harvesters were one such threat, a race of sentient machines that consume all organic life they encounter, converting it into more of themselves. We fought them for millennia, barely managing to contain their spread. "But you lost," Drake said, her voice grim. Nexus nodded. "We underestimated their adaptability. In our final conflict, they developed a way to infect our own technology. Our great cities fell. Our fleets turned against us. In the end, only I remained, tasked with safeguarding the sum total of Forerunner knowledge and technology." He turned to face Zara, his eyes seeming to bore into her. "The data I carry could elevate humanity to heights you can scarcely imagine. But in the hands of the Harvesters, it would spell doom for all life in the galaxy." A heavy silence fell over the cargo bay. Zara's mind reeled, trying to process the enormity of what Nexus was saying. Finally, Drake spoke up. "Why tell us this? Why trust humans with this information?" Nexus's eyes dimmed slightly, a gesture Zara was beginning to recognize as his equivalent of a smile. Because, Captain, your people have something my own lacked: adaptability. The capacity for rapid growth and change. In the short time I've known Zara, I've seen a resourcefulness and determination that gives me hope. He turned, addressing the entire room now. The harvesters are coming. Not just for me, but for all life in this galaxy. Humanity stands on the brink. You have the potential to become something truly remarkable, or to be snuffed out before you realize that potential. I believe you deserve the chance to fight for your future. Drake exchanged a glance with Zara, then squared her shoulders. All right, let's say we believe you. What's our next move? Before Nexus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A voice came over the intercom. Captain, to the bridge. Multiple hostile contacts dropping out of hyperspace. The harvesters, Nexus said, his voice urgent. They found us. Drake was already moving, barking orders into her comm unit. Zara hesitated, torn between following the captain and staying with Nexus. The robot made the decision for her. Go, he said. Your skills may be needed. I will do what I can to fortify our defenses here. Zara nodded and sprinted after Drake. They arrived on the bridge to find chaos. The view screen showed a terrifying sight: a swarm of biomechanical ships, writhing and pulsing like a mass of insects, bearing down on the horizon. Report. Drake snapped, sliding into the captain's chair. 5 harvester vessels, ma'am, the tactical officer responded. Energy readings are off the charts. Our shields won't last long against that kind of firepower. Drake's hands flew over her console. Evasive maneuvers. Charge up the jump drive. We need to get out of here. The ship lurched as it began to weave through space, narrowly avoiding the first barrage of energy weapons from the harvester ships. Zara gripped a nearby console, her heart pounding. Jump drive at 60% and climbing, the navigator called out. We need another 2 minutes. Drake grimaced. We don't have 2 minutes. Tactical, return fire. Target their lead ship. The Horizon's weapons blazed to life, lancing out at the harvester fleet, but their shots seemed to do little more than annoy the massive ships, which pressed their attack with single-minded determination. A violent shudder ran through the ship as a harvester blast found its mark. Warning klaxons blared, and the lights flickered ominously. Shields down to 30%, the tactical officer shouted. We can't take another hit like that. Zara's mind raced. There had to be something they could do, some way to buy more time. Suddenly, an idea struck her. Captain, what if we vented the cargo bay? Create a debris field to slow them down. Drake's eyes widened. It's risky, but it might work. Do it. Zara's fingers flew over the console, overriding safety protocols and preparing to blow the cargo bay doors. But just as she was about to hit the final command, a new voice rang out over the ship's speakers. Belay that order. It was Nexus. I have a better idea. Before anyone could respond, the view screen changed. It now showed the cargo bay, where Nexus stood alone, his form pulsing with energy. As they watched, he began to change. His body seemed to flow and reshape itself, growing larger, more complex. With a start, Zara realized what he was doing. He's turning himself into a weapon. Indeed, where Nexus had stood, there was now a massive cannon, its barrel glowing with barely contained energy. When he spoke again, his voice reverberated with power. Open the cargo bay doors, Zara. I will buy you the time you need. Drake hesitated for only a moment before nodding to Zara. Do it. The cargo bay doors slid open and Nexus, or what had been Nexus, fired. A beam of pure energy, more powerful than anything Zara had ever seen, lanced out into space. It struck the lead harvester ship dead center, piercing through its defenses like they were paper. The ship exploded in a spectacular burst of light and debris. The other harvester vessels seemed to recoil in shock, their advance halting momentarily. It was all the time the Horizon needed. Jump drive at 100%, the navigator shouted. Get us out of here, Drake ordered. The stars blurred around them as the horizon leaped into hyperspace, leaving the stunned harvester fleet behind. A collective sigh of relief went through the bridge crew. Zara slumped against her console, her legs suddenly weak. They had survived, but at what cost? She turned to Drake. We need to check on Nexus. The captain nodded, her face grim. Agreed. Let's go. As they made their way back to the cargo bay, Zara's mind whirled with questions. What exactly was Nexus capable of? And if this was just a taste of Forerunner technology, what other wonders and horrors awaited them? The cargo bay doors opened, revealing a scene of destruction. Where the massive cannon had been, Nexus now lay in his humanoid form, sparks flying from numerous damaged sections. His eyes flickered weakly as Zara and Drake approached. Nexus, Zara cried, kneeling beside him. Are you all right? The robot's voice came out as a strained whisper. I will recover, but I fear I have revealed too much. The harvesters will not stop now. Drake knelt on his other side, her expression a mix of awe and concern. You saved us all. We'll find a way to repair you. Nexus's eyes focused on Zara. There is much to do. The true awakening is yet to come. With that, his eyes went dark, and he fell into what Zara could only assume was some kind of stasis. As medical teams rushed in and engineers began assessing the damage, Zara and Drake shared a look of understanding. Their adventure was only just beginning, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The Horizon sped on through hyperspace, carrying its crew and its extraordinary passenger towards an uncertain future. But one thing was clear, nothing would ever be the same again. On the run, the IS Horizon emerged from hyperspace with a flash of light, its hull still bearing the scars of its encounter with the Harvester fleet. Captain Drake had pushed the ship's engines to their limits, making a series of rapid jumps to throw off any potential pursuit. Now, as they drifted in the shadow of a gas giant in an unmarked system, the crew could finally catch their breath. In the makeshift workshop that had been set up in one of the cargo bays, Zara wiped sweat from her brow as she carefully soldered a connection in Nexus' open chest cavity. The ancient robot lay motionless on a reinforced workbench, his eyes dark and lifeless. It had been 3 days since his heroic stand against the harvesters, and he had yet to show any signs of reactivating. Come on, big guy, Zara muttered, her voice a mix of frustration and concern. What's it going to take to wake you up? Still no luck. Captain Drake's voice came from behind her. Zara turned to see the captain entering the workshop, looking as tired as Zara felt. Nothing, Zara sighed, setting down her tools. I've repaired all the physical damage I can find, but it's like his mind is somewhere else. Drake nodded grimly. We can't stay here much longer. Our supplies are running low, and we need to make contact with Confederate Command. They need to know about the harvester threat. Zara felt a pang of anxiety. We can't leave him like this. What if the harvesters find him? I know, Drake said, placing a comforting hand on Zara's shoulder. But we need to think about the bigger picture. The entire galaxy could be at stake. Before Zara could respond, a low hum filled the air. Both women turned to see Nexus' eyes flickering to life, the strange glyphs on his body pulsing with a soft blue light. Nexus, Zara exclaimed, rushing to his side. Can you hear me? The robot's head turned towards her, his movements still jerky and uncertain. Zara, Captain Drake, I apologize for my prolonged inactivity. The energy expenditure required to neutralize the harvester ship necessitated an extensive regeneration cycle. Drake stepped forward, her expression serious. Glad to have you back, Nexus, but we're in a tight spot here. We need information and we need a plan. Nexus slowly sat up, his joints creaking slightly. Of course, the harvesters will not cease their pursuit. They are driven by a singular purpose, to assimilate all advanced technology and eradicate organic life. My presence has merely accelerated their timetable for this sector of the galaxy. How much time do we have? Zara asked, dreading the answer. Weeks, perhaps months at most, Nexus replied. They will gather their forces, build their fleets, and when they come, it will be with overwhelming force. A heavy silence fell over the workshop. Finally, Drake spoke up. Then we need to prepare. Rally the Confederate forces, warn other species if we can. But we'll need proof, something to make them take the threat seriously. Nexus nodded. I can provide that proof. But there is something else we must do first. He turned to Zara, his glowing eyes seeming to bore into her. Zara, when you reactivated me on Proxima B, a connection was formed. You have been chosen. Zara blinked in confusion. Chosen? For what? To receive the legacy of the Forerunners, Nexus said solemnly. The knowledge and power that I safeguard cannot remain solely within me. It is too vulnerable. It must be shared, passed on to one who can use it to defend life in this galaxy. Drake's eyes widened. Are you saying you want to transfer your knowledge into Zara? Is that even possible? Not all of it, Nexus clarified. Such a transfer would overwhelm a human mind, but a portion enough to begin unlocking the potential of Forerunner technology, enough to give humanity a fighting chance against the Harvesters. Zara's head spun with the implications. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of responsibility. Nexus's expression softened, or at least that's how Zara interpreted the slight change in his metallic features. You have already shown great courage and resourcefulness, Zara. The choice is yours, but know that I believe in you. Before Zara could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Drake's comm unit crackled to life. Captain to the bridge. We've got multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. The Harvesters, Drake asked, already moving towards the door. Negative, Captain, came the reply. IFF signatures match Confederate ships, but there's something off about them. Drake and Zara shared a worried look. We're on our way, the captain said into her comm. She turned to Nexus. Can you move? The robot stood, still somewhat unsteady but functional. I will manage. The trio rushed to the bridge, arriving just as the main view screen flickered to life. It showed a fleet of ships, their designs familiar, but there was something unsettling about them. Their hulls seemed to pulse with an organic quality, and strange growths marred their once sleek surfaces. By the stars, Drake breathed. Those are Confederate ships, but they have been infected, Nexus finished grimly. The Harvesters have already begun their assault, turning your own technology against you. A transmission cut through the stunned silence on the bridge. A face appeared on the screen, human but twisted, with metallic implants protruding from pallid skin. When it spoke, its voice was a horrifying blend of organic and synthetic. IS Horizon, this is Admiral Venn of the Confederate Fleet. You are harboring a fugitive of extreme value. Surrender the entity known as Nexus immediately, or be destroyed. Drake's jaw clenched. Like hell we will. She turned to her crew. Battle stations. Prepare for emergency jump. The infected ships opened fire, their weapons enhanced by Harvester technology. The Horizon shuddered under the assault, its shields flaring. We can't take them in a fight, Zara said, her mind racing. And we can't outrun them forever. Nexus stepped forward. There is another way. Zara, if you are willing to accept the legacy I offer, I can guide us to a place of safety. A hidden Forerunner outpost where we can prepare, gather allies. Zara looked from Nexus to Drake, seeing the question in the captain's eyes. This was her choice, but it would affect them all. Another blast rocked the ship, and Zara made her decision. Do it, she said to Nexus. Whatever it takes to save our people, to save the galaxy. Nexus nodded sullenly. He reached out, placing a hand on Zara's forehead. Energy crackled between them, and Zara gasped as information flooded her mind. Star charts, schematics, fragments of an alien language. Plot a course to these coordinates, Zara said as soon as Nexus released her, rattling off a string of numbers that made no sense to her conscious mind, but felt undeniably right. Drake hesitated for only a moment before nodding to her navigator. "You heard her. Punch it." The Horizon's engines roared to life, pushing the ship to speeds it was never designed to achieve. The infected Confederate ships fell behind, their weapons fire becoming more distant. As the stars blurred around them, Zara felt a profound sense of change settling over her. She wasn't just Zara Chen anymore, scrappy mechanic from a backwater colony. She was something more now, carrying within her the hopes of an ancient race and perhaps the key to humanity's survival. The ship hurtled through space towards an uncertain destination, leaving behind a galaxy on the brink of war. But for Zara, Nexus, and the crew of the Horizon, the real journey was just beginning. Revelations. The IS Horizon dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder, its hull groaning from the strain of the prolonged high-speed journey. Before them loomed a massive gas giant, its swirling storms casting an eerie glow on a small, rocky moon that orbited it. This desolate chunk of rock was their destination, the hidden Forerunner outpost that Zara's newly acquired knowledge had led them to. As the ship entered orbit around the moon, Zara stood on the bridge, her eyes closed in concentration. The information Nexus had imparted to her was vast and often confusing, like trying to recall a half-remembered dream. But as they neared the surface, something clicked into place. "There," she said, pointing to a seemingly random spot on the moon's barren landscape. "That's where we need to go." Captain Drake raised an eyebrow, but nodded to her navigator. "Take us in, nice and easy." As they descended, the ship's sensors began to pick up faint energy readings. Suddenly, the rocky ground beneath them seemed to shimmer and fade, revealing a massive structure that had been hidden by some kind of advanced cloaking technology. By the stars, Drake breathed. "What is this place?" Nexus, who had been silently observing until now, spoke up. "This is the Ark of Memory, one of the last refuges of Forerunner knowledge in the galaxy. Here, we may find the tools and information necessary to combat the Harvester threat." The Horizon touched down on a landing pad that seemed to materialize out of thin air. As the crew prepared to disembark, Zara felt a strange pull, an instinctive understanding of where to go and what to do. "Follow me," she said, her voice carrying a confidence she didn't entirely feel. They made their way through winding corridors of gleaming metal and pulsing energy conduits. The air was thick with the weight of eons, and Zara could almost feel the whispers of long-dead Forerunners echoing through the halls. Finally, they reached a vast chamber dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy. Zara approached a control panel, her hands moving of their own accord over alien symbols that somehow made perfect sense to her. The hologram zoomed in on their sector of space, and red lights began to blink across it. Harvester incursions, Zara realized with a chill. "It's worse than we thought," Drake said grimly. "They're not just coming, they're already here." Nexus stepped forward, his eyes scanning the display. "The infection spreads quickly. Your Confederate ships were only the beginning. The Harvesters will target centers of power, technology hubs, anything that can further their goal of total assimilation." Zara's fingers flew over the controls, bringing up more detailed information. "There's something else," she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The Harvesters, they're not just a random threat. They're looking for something specific." The hologram shifted, showing a series of strange geometric objects scattered across the galaxy. Nexus's eyes flared brightly at the sight. "The Celestial Keys," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and dread. "Artifacts of immense power, created by the Forerunners at the height of our civilization. We thought them lost to time, but if the Harvesters have discovered their existence—" "What do these keys do?" Drake asked, her tactical mind already racing with possibilities. Nexus turned to face them, his expression grave. "They are the components of a weapon of unimaginable power, one capable of rewriting the very fabric of space-time. In the hands of the Forerunners, it was meant to be a tool of creation, of nurturing life across the cosmos. But if the harvesters gain control of it, they could reshape reality itself, Zara finished, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. Erase all organic life from existence. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the enormity of the situation sank in. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. The fate of all life, of the very nature of the universe, hung in the balance. Drake was the first to speak, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "All right, we know what we're up against. Now, how do we stop it?" Zara turned back to the control panel, calling up more information from the vast Forerunner database. "We need to find the keys before the harvesters do. According to this, there are 5 of them scattered across different systems." "And once we have them?" Drake asked. "We use them," Nexus said simply. "Not as a weapon, but as a shield. With the power of the celestial keys, we can create a barrier that will push the harvesters out of our galaxy, sealing them away for good." Zara nodded, the plan forming in her mind as clearly as if she had thought of it herself. "But we can't do it alone. We need allies, resources." "The Confederation won't be enough," Drake said, shaking her head. "Not with how far the harvester infection has spread. We need to think bigger." Nexus' eyes seemed to brighten with an idea. "Perhaps it is time to awaken old alliances. There are other races, survivors of the Forerunner's time, who might yet be roused to action." Zara's hands moved over the controls once more, bringing up star charts and information on species she had never heard of. The Etheri, masters of energy manipulation. The Vorkai, warrior philosophers with technology to rival the Forerunners. The Xin Collective, a hive mind of unparalleled computational power. "Great," Drake said, a hint of her old sarcasm creeping back into her voice. "All we have to do is convince a bunch of ancient, probably cranky alien races to join our crusade, while racing against cybernetic space zombies to find magical universe-altering keys. Should be a walk in the park." Despite the gravity of the situation, Zara found herself smiling. "When you put it like that, Captain, it almost sounds fun." Nexus placed a hand on Zara's shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle for a being of metal and circuitry. "The path ahead is fraught with danger, but I have faith in you, in all of you. Humanity's adaptability, coupled with the legacy of the Forerunners, may be exactly what this galaxy needs to survive the coming storm." As if on cue, alarms began to blare throughout the outpost. The holographic display shifted, showing a massive harvester fleet dropping out of hyperspace near the gas giant. "How did they find us so quickly?" Drake demanded, already reaching for her comm unit to alert the horizon. "The celestial keys resonate with each other," Nexus explained quickly. "In accessing the information here, we may have inadvertently signaled our presence." Zara's mind raced, processing the new information flooding into her consciousness. "We can't let them get their hands on the outpost's databanks. There's too much sensitive information here." She turned to the others, her expression resolute. "I think I know how to trigger the outpost's self-destruct sequence, but we'll only have a few minutes to get back to the ship." Drake nodded grimly. "Do it. We've got what we came for. Now it's time to take the fight to them." As Zara's hands flew over the controls one last time, initiating the destruction of eons of accumulated knowledge, she felt a profound sense of purpose settling over her. The weight of galaxies rested on their shoulders, but for the first time since this wild adventure began, she felt ready for the challenge. They raced back to the horizon, the outpost crumbling behind them as ancient failsafes activated. As the ship lifted off, narrowly escaping the grasping tendrils of harvester boarding craft, Zara looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were the keys to saving everything she had ever known, and a whole universe she had yet to discover. With Nexus at her side, Captain Drake at the helm, and the legacy of the Forerunners pulsing through her veins, Zara Chen was ready to take on the galaxy. The hunt for the celestial keys had begun. Forging alliances. The IS horizon streaked through the vast emptiness of space, its hulls still bearing the scars of recent battles. In the ship's makeshift war room, Zara Chen stood before a holographic display, her eyes darting between star charts and alien text that would have been incomprehensible to her just weeks ago. Captain Drake entered, looking haggard but determined. "Report, Chen. Where are we on finding our first potential ally?" Zara gestured to a pulsing point on the star map. "I've managed to locate the homeworld of the Aetheri. If the Forerunner records are correct, they're our best bet for help with the energy manipulation required to use the celestial keys." Nexus, who had been silently observing from a corner, stepped forward. "The Aetheri were old when my people were young. Their mastery of cosmic energies is unparalleled, but they are also notoriously isolationist. Convincing them to join our cause will not be easy." Drake nodded grimly. "Nothing about this mission has been easy so far. Why start now?" She turned to her communications officer. "Set a course for the Aetheri homeworld. Maximum speed." As the horizon changed course, Zara felt a familiar tingling at the base of her skull, the Forerunner knowledge asserting itself. "Wait," she said, her voice distant as if in a trance. "We can't just show up unannounced. The Aetheri, they communicate through energy patterns. We need to send a signal they'll understand." Her hands moved over the ship's controls, inputting a complex series of commands. The Horizon's engines hummed with a new frequency, sending out pulses of energy in a rhythmic pattern. "What did you just do?" Drake asked, a mix of awe and concern in her voice. Zara blinked, coming back to herself. I think I just said hello in Aetheri." Hours passed as the ship approached the Aetheri homeworld. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a swirling mass of energy and light, with no visible solid surface. Suddenly, the ship's sensors lit up. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the planet, enveloping the horizon. But instead of damage, they felt a gentle tug. "They're inviting us in," Zara realized. As they descended into the energy field, the ship's interior began to shimmer and distort. Zara felt a presence brush against her mind, vast and ancient. "Welcome, children of the young races," a voice echoed in their heads. "We have heard your call. Come, and let us speak of the doom that approaches." They found themselves in a vast chamber of swirling light, their physical forms seeming to blur at the edges. Before them hovered three beings of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting and flowing. "I am Zyrix," the central figure spoke directly into their minds. "We are the conclave of the Aetheri. You have brought a Forerunner to our realm. Explain yourselves." Zara stepped forward, drawing on the knowledge and diplomatic protocols buried in her newly expanded consciousness. "Honored conclave, we come seeking your aid. The harvesters have returned, and they seek the celestial keys. If they succeed, all life in the galaxy, perhaps the universe, will be extinguished." The Aetheri conferred among themselves in rapid pulses of energy. Finally, Zyrix addressed them again. "We remember the harvesters, a blight upon creation. But why should we intervene? The Aetheri have stood apart from the conflicts of the younger races for eons." Captain Drake, visibly struggling to maintain her composure in the alien environment, spoke up. "With all due respect, this isn't just about the younger races. If the harvesters get the celestial keys, they'll reshape reality itself. No one will be safe, not even the Aetheri." Nexus added his voice to the plea. "My people fought the harvesters to a standstill, but at a terrible cost. We cannot make the same mistake again. Unity is our only hope." The conclave fell silent, and Zara felt the weight of their ancient minds considering their words. The chamber around them pulsed with colors beyond human perception. Finally, Zyrix spoke again. "You speak truth, bearers of the Forerunner legacy. The threat is grave indeed, but words alone are not enough. If you would have our aid, you must prove yourselves worthy." "Name your challenge," Zara said without hesitation. The chamber shifted, and suddenly they found themselves floating in what appeared to be open space. A miniature galaxy swirled before them, and at its heart, a pulsing singularity. "Behold, a replica of the nexus of creation," Xerix explained. "The cosmic confluence from which all energy flows. It has fallen into chaos. Restore its balance, and you will have proven your worth to wield the power of the celestial keys." Zara looked to her companions, seeing determination in their eyes. This was what they had come for, a chance to prove that humanity, with the legacy of the Forerunners, could rise to face its galactic threat. As one, they reached out towards the swirling galaxy. Zara felt the Forerunner knowledge surging within her, guiding her actions. Drake's tactical mind analyzed energy flows like battle strategies. Nexus's ancient wisdom provided a framework for their efforts. Together, they began to manipulate the cosmic energies, redirecting flows, stabilizing volatile regions, weaving a tapestry of balance across the miniature galaxy. It was exhausting, exhilarating work, pushing the limits of their newfound abilities. Hours seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. Finally, with a pulse of pure harmony, the nexus of creation stabilized. The miniature galaxy glowed with renewed vigor, its energy patterns a testament to the delicate balance they had achieved. As the simulation faded away, they found themselves once again before the Ethereal conclave. Xerix's form seemed to pulse with what Zara interpreted as approval. "You have done well," the ancient being intoned. "In your actions, we see the potential for a new age of cooperation between the cosmic races. The Ethereal will join your alliance against the Harvesters." Relief and triumph surged through the group, but Xerix wasn't finished. "We will share with you the secrets of energy manipulation necessary to wield the celestial keys. But be warned, the other races you seek may not be so easily swayed. The Vorkai are proud and martial. They will demand proof of your combat prowess. The Xin Collective values information above all. You must offer them knowledge they do not possess." Zara nodded, her mind already racing with the challenges ahead. "We understand. Thank you for your wisdom and your aid." As they prepared to depart, Xerix had one final message. "The balance you achieved here was impressive, but it is only a fraction of what you must accomplish on a galactic scale. Go now, and may the cosmic winds be at your back." Back aboard the Horizon, the crew took a moment to catch their breath and process what had just occurred. They had gained a powerful ally, but the road ahead was still long and fraught with danger. Captain Drake turned to Zara and Nexus, a glint of determination in her eye. "One down, two to go. Where to next?" Zara consulted the star charts, feeling the pull of destiny. "The fortress world of the Vorkai. Time to see if our combat skills are as sharp as our energy manipulation." As the Horizon set course for their next challenge, Zara couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. They were no longer alone in their fight against the Harvesters. With each ally gained, each skill mastered, they moved one step closer to saving the galaxy. The hunt for the celestial keys continued, and the fate of all creation hung in the balance. The final stand. The IS Horizon emerged from hyperspace into a scene of utter chaos. The space around them was filled with the twisted, biomechanical ships of the Harvester fleet, engaged in a fierce battle with the combined forces of the Confederation, the Ethereal, the Vorkai, and the Xin Collective. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the backdrop of stars. In the ship's command center, Zara Chen stood before a holographic display of the battlefield, her mind racing as she processed information at speeds that would have been impossible before her merger with Forerunner technology. Captain Drake barked orders to her crew, coordinating with the Allied fleet, while Nexus interfaced directly with the ship's systems, enhancing their capabilities beyond their original design. "The Harvesters have found the location of the final celestial key," Zara announced, her voice tight with tension. "It's there, on that planet." She pointed to a small blue-green world at the edge of the system. Drake nodded grimly. "Then that's where we're going. All hands, prepare for atmospheric entry. This is going to get rough." As the Horizon plunged towards the planet's surface, weaving through debris and enemy fire, Zara felt the weight of the 4 celestial keys they had already collected. Each one had been a battle, a test of their growing abilities and the strength of their alliance. Now, everything hinged on securing the final piece of the puzzle. They touched down in a clearing surrounded by towering alien structures, the ruins of an ancient Forerunner city. As Zara, Drake, Nexus, and a team of allied warriors disembarked, the sky above them was lit by the ongoing space battle. "The key is in the central citadel," Nexus said, pointing to a massive structure looming in the distance. "But the Harvesters will throw everything they have at us to prevent us from reaching it." As if on cue, the ground trembled. From the ruins around them emerged twisted cyborg creatures, former members of various species, now warped and assimilated by Harvester technology. They advanced relentlessly, their eyes glowing with malevolent purpose. "Defensive positions," Drake shouted, raising her energy rifle. The air crackled with weapons fire as the allied team engaged the Harvester forces. Zara found herself fighting alongside an ethery energy weaver, their combined powers creating devastating whirlwinds of destructive force. A Vorkai warrior, his blade humming with power, cut through the enemy ranks like a hot knife through butter. The collective consciousness of a Xin unit provided real-time tactical data, allowing them to anticipate and counter the Harvester's moves. But for every enemy they felled, two more seemed to take its place. The Harvesters were relentless, driven by a single-minded purpose to claim the final key. "We can't hold them off forever," Drake yelled over the din of battle. "Zara, Nexus, you need to get to that citadel. We'll cover you." Zara nodded, her heart pounding. This was it, the moment everything had been built in towards. She and Nexus sprinted towards the towering structure, their allies creating a path through the chaos. As they reached the base of the citadel, a massive shape detached itself from the shadows. It was a Harvester Prime, a monstrous fusion of organic and mechanical parts, easily 3 times their size. So, it spoke, its voice a grating metallic screech. The last Forerunner and the human who would bear their legacy. How fitting that you should fall here, at the cusp of your failure. Nexus stepped forward, his form shifting as weapon systems emerged from his frame. "You underestimate us, Abomination, as you always have." The battle that ensued was like nothing Zara had ever experienced. Nexus and the Harvester Prime clashed in a fury of energy blasts and metallic tendrils, while Zara drew upon every ounce of her newfound powers to tip the scales. She manipulated energy fields to deflect the Prime's attacks, created localized gravity wells to throw it off balance, and channeled bursts of cosmic force to damage its systems. But the creature was incredibly resilient, regenerating damage almost as quickly as they could inflict it. "Zara," Nexus called out as he grappled with the Prime. "The key, you must reach it." Understanding flashed through her mind. Nexus was buying her time. With a pang of fear for her friend, Zara turned and raced into the citadel. The interior was a maze of twisting corridors and vast chambers, but the Forerunner knowledge within her guided her steps. She could feel the pull of the final celestial key, growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, she emerged into a massive central chamber. There, floating in a column of energy, was the key, a geometric object of impossible complexity, pulsing with power that made her skin tingle. But she wasn't alone. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Admiral Venn, the Confederation officer they had encountered earlier, now fully transformed into a Harvester hybrid. "Did you really think we would let you claim the final piece?" Venn sneered, his voice a horrifying blend of human and machine. "The Harvesters are the next step in evolution. Why fight the inevitable?" Zara stood her ground, feeling the power of the other 4 keys resonating within her. Because life, real life, is more than just survival. It's growth, change, the freedom to choose our own path. Something you gave up when you surrendered to the Harvesters. Venn laughed, the sound sending chills down her spine. "Noble sentiments. Let's see if they protect you from this." He raised his arm, now transformed into a vicious-looking energy weapon, and fired. Zara reacted on instinct, throwing up an energy barrier that barely deflected the blast. The fight that followed pushed her to the very limits of her abilities. Ven's harvester-enhanced body made him incredibly strong and fast, while his tactical mind allowed him to anticipate many of her moves. But Zara had something Ven didn't: the legacy of the Forerunners and the hope of all the allies fighting above. She drew upon reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, countering Ven's attacks with increasingly complex manipulations of energy and matter. The chamber shook around them as their battle raged, ancient systems reacting to the unleashed power. Zara knew she couldn't keep this up forever. She needed to end this now. In a desperate gambit, she reached out with her mind to the 4 celestial keys she carried. They responded, their energy surging through her. With a cry of effort, she channeled that power into a single devastating blast. Ven's eyes widened in shock as the energy engulfed him. For a moment, his form seemed to waver between human and harvester, and Zara caught a glimpse of the man he had once been. Then, with a final inhuman shriek, he disintegrated. Panting, her entire body aching, Zara turned to the floating key. As her hand closed around it, she felt a surge of completion. All 5 keys were united at last. She staggered out of the citadel to find the battle still raging. Nexus was barely holding his own against the Harvester Prime, while Drake and their allies fought a desperate holding action against waves of enemies. But now they had a chance. "Everyone fall back," Zara shouted, her voice carrying with unnatural power. "Get to the ship." As her allies retreated, Zara stood before the Harvester forces. She raised the celestial keys, feeling their power coursing through her. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend around her. "This ends now," she declared. With a thought, she activated the keys. A pulse of energy expanded outward, washing over the planet, the system, the entire galaxy. Where it touched Harvester forces, they simply ceased to be, that unnatural existence erased from the universe. The Harvester Prime roared in defiance, charging towards her. But it was too late. The wave of energy engulfed it, and it dissolved into nothingness. As the light faded, Zara found herself standing in eerie silence. The Harvesters were gone, not just defeated, but expunged from reality itself. The threat that had loomed over the galaxy for eons had been vanquished. Nexus approached her, his metallic features somehow conveying awe. "You did it, Zara. You've saved us all." Captain Drake limped over, a weary grin on her face. "Not bad for a scrap mechanic from a backwater colony, huh?" Zara laughed, feeling lightheaded with relief and exhaustion. "I had some help." As Allied ships descended from orbit, bringing news of the Harvester's defeat across the galaxy, Zara looked up at the stars. They seemed brighter somehow, full of promise and possibility. The threat was over, but their journey was just beginning. With the power of the celestial keys and the alliance they had forged, they had the opportunity to reshape the galaxy for the better. To heal the wounds left by centuries of conflict, to explore the furthest reaches of space, to ensure that life, in all its wondrous diversity, would continue to thrive. Zara Chen, once a simple mechanic, now stood at the dawn of a new era, and she couldn't wait to see what the future held.